Hello everyone! Welcome to our second ever live stream. How are you today? Can you hear us well? We will wait until at least one person writes a comment of whether or not they actually can hear us. And then we will start with the regularly scheduled programming. Today we will talk a bit about science communication, and we will celebrate our 1 year of existence, basically. We started our podcast more or less 1 year ago. Our first ever episode went up in August of 2019, and we're super excited that we actually made it for a full year. And so, oh, hello, Sophie Höller. I can hear you, works well. That's very nice to hear.
Actually, Sarah, I have one comment. I can hear you double. For any reason, I can hear the live stream.
Because you didn't mute the live streaming. Please mute the live streaming.
Where do I do that?
On YouTube.
Yeah, this is what I did actually.
It's a very good question. You can mute me on Skype though, but then it's.
Okay. Now I'm good. I'm good.
Perfect. Technical. We have a special screen just in case there is a technical difficulty. It looks like this, but we're not experiencing technical difficulties. So yeah, back to where we were. We're super excited that we exist now for 1 year. We set out to do, I think, 25 episodes, and this now is our 22nd episode, so we didn't quite make it to 25, but we think that we can still be quite proud of ourselves because it was a long year, it was a lot of work. But I think it also paid off, and it was really cool, at least for me, to be able to research so many different topics, to interview so many cool people that I never thought we'd get to talk to. And
very true.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite memory of an interview that you enjoyed particularly?
Actually, I enjoyed all interviews I did, but my special memory is of the interview with Kim Dovey in Australia, because of the time difference. It was a bit of a challenge to get an appointment, but finally we figured out, and then his mic didn't work, and I was a little annoyed of the whole situation because I had to get up really early. But in the end, it was such an interesting interview, and it was really, really worth it. And I was just so happy to have this really nice interview, and also to talk to someone who is literally on the other side of the planet. But actually, all the interviews also...
which episode was that? I think it was one of the informality ones, right?
Exactly, it was one of the informality ones. First or second? No, first one exactly.
So if you want to listen to that episode after the live streaming, hi Didak, the setup looks great. Thank you very much. Guess who helped us with the setup? And I just realized we're already revealing something that we shouldn't be revealing. We'll talk about the giveaway later. So one of the things that I thought was so cool, aside from doing the interviews, was also just learning so much about editing, learning so much about how also to approach a topic and how to script it and how to record it and how much there is involved in all of that.
I learned so much about all website things and all those things, because I really had no idea of any backends of websites, and now I do, and I'm really proud of that actually.
And I knew a bit about backends of websites, but still every project is also new. And for me, really, this creative process was something that I really enjoyed, and harnessing my interviewing skills, all that was really great. And so, yeah, I think it was a great year. And to segue a little bit to the next part, you can see in the top, this side, in this corner, a little... thank you, Dilek. Sarah, we can hear Constanze quite more than you, so I will put myself a little bit louder here. Yes. I hope it worked. Please let us know in the comments if the setup is a bit better now. Live streamings, we didn't do so many yet. It's also quite funny to see the difference of doing a live streaming where you can edit nothing and literally what you say is immediately recorded, and having this highly structured process in an episode. So to go back to what it says up there in that corner, curriculum extended, do you want to explain shortly what it is and why we're actually doing this live streaming?
Exactly. Yes. This is actually the final episode of Curriculum Extended. This is a project we did as an answer or result or, I don't know, approach to the corona crisis from a student's perspective. We both don't study anymore, at least not taking actively classes at the moment. I am actually registered for my PhD, but anyway. But from colleagues and friends, we heard that all the distance learning and all the distance courses didn't work out that well. I mean, some of them were great, and some of teachers and professors at university really did a great job. But for some courses, this was not the case, and I heard many complaints actually that it was not the best semester to study, especially spatial planning at the TU. I mean, it's not a criticism for teachers at TU. Many of them did a great job, and it was a challenge for everyone. But it was not the perfect semester, and so we realized, and especially the big issue was that especially the
more specialization topics didn't really find...
The specialization topic did not take place.
Hi Diogo, happy birthday, great initiative and podcast, keep it up. We'll keep it up, but later on that later. Thank you very much.
And so we thought that actually podcasting and listening to podcasts could actually be a perfect opportunity for students to inform themselves and to learn more about some topics which are close to the curriculum but not the curriculum itself. And so we created Curriculum Extended. So we chose some topics which are touching the curriculum of our studies at the TU Vienna, but we tried to get a new angle of a point of view, but also just additional information to some topics. And so we did 5 episodes within this project to give students the chance to learn something new about some topics which are related, but not strictly within their curriculum.
Exactly. And we just wanted to take that opportunity, and this is kind of the wrap up of that whole 5 episodes plus this last live streaming, I think.
Yeah.
And we went from vernacular architecture. Last week we published the episode on Great Zimbabwe. We did an episode on... Didac Barroso is now breaking some paradigms. Someone subscribed. Thank you very much, Didac Barroso. And for helping me stall a little bit, we did an episode on the disadvantages of property and on refugee camps, where we interviewed actually someone who is a volunteer in the Balkan region, and also explained a bit the difficulties of this situation right now with the corona crisis on top of a refugee crisis. And then we also talked about urban climate strategies, and to double back to the vernacular architecture episode, we actually did a cooperation with the African Innovation Network, which was really interesting to find a bit more the perspective of African vernacular architecture. And we really warmly recommend you the interview that we did with Puchara Idrisi. You can listen all the episodes on our website, which is just breakingparadigms.org. All written together except the org, which has a dot in front of it. And yeah, so we're super excited. And as you might have noticed, it's also sponsored by our university. We are getting a little supplement for doing this. And this episode also has a very special sponsor, namely the Zoll Plus magazine, which... Now we're getting to the interesting part, to the part where you can actually win something. Just for clarity, you can win something and still recommend this live stream to other people and to still participate until Friday 11 Central European Summertime. So for everyone outside...
AM, by the way.
Yeah, 11 a.m. For everyone outside this time zone, like... Diogo, for example. I know where you are. We will close the raffle, and then we'll draw the names. But first, let me explain what is Zoll Plus magazine and why are we so excited about this. Because Zoll Plus magazine is focused on landscape and open space planning in urban and rural spheres. The current issue looks like this. And similarly to Breaking Paradigms, their discussion platform and especially a starting point, with one major difference: they exist for more than 25 years and we exist now for 1 year. And they always choose a general topic. In this edition it's neu, which is German for new. The articles inside are in English and in German, so be aware if you want to participate in winning that a lot of the articles are in German, but there's also a lot of photography inside. And for me, I really enjoy the magazine for a while now. One of my personal favorites is the edition which is called Bund, which... yeah, you can find out everything on their website, zollplus.org. And why are we so excited about this specific edition? Because we are actually published in this. We were asked to participate and to write an article on how podcasting can improve scientific communication in spatial planning, and this is also why they sponsored this specific episode and sponsor 5 magazines which you can win. And the way to do that is to answer one simple question. How did you find out about Breaking Paradigms? Just write us a comment either in the... This way is the comment section. Just write us a comment. How did you find Breaking Paradigms? Who recommended it to you? Or how did you learn about it? You can also just write what you like about it or what you find interesting about it. And make sure to put in brackets Zoll Plus, like it's written in the little title card. Wait. cameras, always the wrong way. Here, over there. And that makes sure that you are able to win. And currently, we're experiencing difficulties with the connection with Constanze, but she's back, I think. Constanze?
Okay. So yeah. I was gone. Okay.
You were gone for a moment. So yeah. The way we're going to do it is we're going to do a list of all the names who put their comment with zoll plus in brackets, and we will draw 5 people. It does not count extra if you write 6 comments. Your name is just put once, so just make sure that you write 1 good comment at least. But of course we appreciate everyone writing also more comments, and yeah, so that's it. We will draw, as I said, on Friday at 11 a.m. Central European Summer Time, and we will publish who won on our website as well as in a comment below this live streaming. And then we would ask everyone who's a winner, because screen names are not always real names, that you send us an email to info@breakingparadigms.org, which is our email address. You can also just write us a comment or whatever you want on that email address, to send us your postal address, so that we can actually send you the magazine. So that's basically it. Answer the question, write zoll plus in brackets, and or a comment, and write us an email if you won with your postal information. Yeah, is that? I hope I explained it well. I never did a giveaway so far. I'm super excited that we got this cooperation, and if you are interested in a subscription of the zoll plus magazine, same thing, go to zollplus.org and you can order it there. I think they're very excited for anyone new subscribing, and yeah, so now we get to the meaty part of this this live streaming. We want to talk a little bit about our experience with science communication. Like in the article that we wrote, we will give away some spoilers of our article, so it's good that there's a lot of other articles. Like this, it's like a little book, no? The magazine.
Yeah. Can
you show it? How thick it is? It's quite thick. And so yeah, we will talk a bit about that, but I think it's still worth a read. We wrote this before the corona situation happened, and the thing is as well that I think all the things apply equally. I think that in general, with digitalization, which I think podcasting is one of those movements that exist mostly because of the digital evolution, the corona situation has kind of amplified all of that. But let's start on why science communication is close to our heart.
Okay. In general, I have the feeling that some people would contradict, but I think it still is the case that, especially when you're a German speaker and you say you study Raumplanung, which is spatial planning in German, it's a similar word for room in German, and so people still think that you do interior design. And then when you explain what you actually do, it still happens that people tell me, so, you can study that? So, so I think there's a big lack still in
knowledge gap.
Information about, there's a big knowledge gap about spatial planning in general, even though it actually touches our daily life, because wherever you live, probably someone planned that, especially when you live in a city. And still, people are not aware who that actually does what everything is, like all the things which are around you.
All the formal things that are around you.
True.
Hi, Anna. I don't know who started this trend. I'm guessing Didak, but they're just commenting now emojis. Hello, turtle.
Yeah. So, and I think the connection there to science communication is the fact that all the findings are not available or approachable to the broad public. And I think this is a special issue for spatial planning.
I think it also has to do a bit with the reality that for a very long time, planners were also conceptualized by themselves as well as the state as this godfather figure, which we learn a lot about in sociology, in spatial sociology. Hi, Susanna. And we... I think that also made it kind of this secret thing that happened behind closed doors. Nowadays, I think we conceptualize spatial planning much more openly and much more in terms of, as a community, we have needs and we want certain things, rather than some planner who shapes what should be done and shouldn't be done. Because if you look at big planners of the past, like in Paris, Haussmann, who literally built huge boulevards through, back then, informal settlements, which were just eradicated and replaced by formal buildings. This was kind of a huge influence into the city, but it always has more this feeling of, okay, politicians decided that, rather than this is actually planned. And I think maybe in the case of Paris, it's not that strong, but in the case of, for example, also Vienna with the Ring, it was a political decision, but then what actually happened between the architecture and the political decision, that gap, I think, is very rarely closed by, okay, someone actually planned what should go where. And it also comes, I think, a bit from this reality that in the past we often didn't have plans for that, even though it was maybe structurally done. It was more in terms of a political decision without using the science that we have nowadays in terms of how should we arrange houses, what should go where, what is ideal social infrastructure, what is ideal landscape planning in a certain area. And so I think that makes it a lot more difficult to understand on how far-reaching planning can be and how accidental it often was in the past and still is today. That not, I think what you said before, that everything kind of has a purpose and was actually planned. I think that's true for a lot more than people think, but I also do think that there are some niche areas where there's still more this accidental happening. And I think something that we also get to know in our own studies is that especially spatial planning is something that is often considered as, okay, but I can do that, that's not difficult, like that doesn't need actual scientific discovery. I remember at the university in Dortmund, one of the professors there actually was asking, we were there in a class on like current topics of spatial planning, and he was always very very discussion based, and he was just trying to be quite provocative and asking, is spatial planning actually a science? Like, is it its own thing, or is it just a conglomerate of other things? And I don't know if we came to a conclusion at the end. I think it's both. It's a conglomerate, but it's also kind of its own thing because it's a conglomerate. Because if you think of other fields of study, nothing stands by itself, including spatial planning, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think when it comes to science communication, specifically in spatial planning, like what are ideal ways, for example, for participation, the reality of planning and the let's say good science about it are not always perfectly matched, and there's this kind of time gap, as we were discussing just before, between either the practitioners already have a plan in mind or a way to do things, and that is already further out there than the science currently supports, or on the other hand you have scientists who already are going above and beyond, trying things that don't necessarily seem tangible to practitioners because they are too far out there maybe. And I think especially in spatial planning being such a tangible subject, this can be quite an issue in terms of this mismatch between science communication and practice as well.
I agree on that. Okay, but where do we meet all that with the podcast? So, because I keep thinking of that actually, as well. Why do we actually do that, and why is this project something I really like to do? And for me, because a podcast is such an approachable thing, because this morning I sent a message to some of my friends to invite them that we are going to have, and like tell them, remember, we will have the live stream tonight. And I started the message with, hey, it's pretty warm out there. What about chilling somewhere at a lake, on the balcony, on the sofa, or somewhere else, and listen to the podcast? And this is actually the thing about it. You can actually be wherever you like and listening to the podcast wherever on the planet you are, as long as you have internet connection. And okay, for a live stream you normally need a proper internet connection, but for the recorded episodes you actually don't even need really strong internet connection, and this is pretty handy. And of course people would argue, of course, but you can also just go to the library, get a book, and read wherever you like. That's very true, and this is also what people should do, and I really appreciate libraries, and I really love reading books. And I love the HTU library and many more, of all the books they have, because they're the base of our research whenever we do any episode. But still, you need to go to the library, which is a specific place, first, get the book, and then you can go to the lake. And this is the big difference.
I think it has also to do with the digitalization and technologization of our society, because nowadays, for most people, a phone is very readily available. Even any internet connection, maybe not a strong one, but any internet connection is also available. And I think especially when talking, for example, about the Global South, where broadband internet in some areas is still an issue, same as, for example, in very rural areas in Europe, you have the same situation that, of course, in a big city like Nairobi, you don't have a problem with bandwidth, but if you are in a rural area, no matter where in the world, you will always struggle with that. And a podcast, compared, for example, to a video as well, is very easily downloadable. Anna asked, what do you think about Grätzl-Gespräche? Should they be included in the science communication? So I'm not 100% sure which Grätzl-Gespräche you're talking about. Maybe you could clarify that, because I know at least of 2 initiatives that are called that, and so we can answer your question appropriately. But one thing I wanted to point out when about what you were saying before is that I think science communication in general very often is inapproachable in the way that you said from a physical perspective, but I think also sometimes from a perspective of language and a perspective of availability. And availability is, of course, physical availability, but also this kind of barrier. My sister Anna is saying it's not area, it's called Germany. What? I am very confused by this comment. Please clarify. Maybe I said something before. I think because we were talking before about bad internet connection. I don't know if we have any German viewers right now who can confirm or deny about the quality of internet connections. I only had terrible internet.
I mean, at least the train in like some parts of Baden-Württemberg, like when you're on the train, there is bad internet connection. And according to some friends,
no, I'm talking about my dorm in Dortmund. Yeah, Anna confirms internet connection. Okay. Thank you. But I think one of the challenges in terms of availability is one, the physical availability, but also this kind of, I'm going to call it searchability, because if I put a word online, maybe I don't want to pay to order a book or a magazine. And this is podcasts generally are for free, not all of them, but that's the more common practice. And that doesn't mean that they are cheap in the sense of production, but it means that they are more available. And because, as you said, it's a direct thing, that it's not, I need to until I get my product, but I can just click on it. That makes a huge difference. And in terms of language, as I said before, I think one of the big advantages of talking, and I know that we have not always used the most low threshold wording, also because we know our audience is mostly people who are based in spatial planning. I think one of the things is that when we talk, our language usually is more approachable than in a scientific paper. I mean, that's just my theory.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's also very legible scientific papers, but especially from researching for the podcast, I remember for the episode on Great Zimbabwe that we did last week, we were going through some archaeological papers, and with some sentences you needed to read them 3 times. That doesn't mean that when we talk in a podcast, everyone will equally understand. I think there's still a knowledge barrier there. But I think when we talk, we are much more inclined to speak in a lower threshold way than when we put something on paper and we revisit it quite a bit. So I think that also goes for example, our episodes that are more scripted. I think usually have more high threshold language than episodes that have interviews. Of course, some interview partners will still use specific vernacular of the subject that might not be understandable to everyone, but I think in the way that it's said, very often it's still lower threshold. And I think one of the best examples of this type of science communication is actually Greta Thunberg for the environmental topics, because the science was there for years and years, but people started paying attention because of the way it was communicated. And I'm not a big fan of making science very emotional, because it also creates this kind of bubble where nowadays we talk about fake news and we talk about post-factual era, which I find this is very odd to talk about when talking about science, because of course there's good science and there is bad science, depending on how you create your study. Like I think just yesterday the news broke about a study on doctors and the way that is appropriate for them to dress, and then it was heavily criticized for having a huge gender bias, and all that kind of snowballed a little bit. But so I think we can always criticize the way science is conducted, and that brings me actually to another point that we were talking about, and that's also in the article, that a podcast automatically gives you more this feeling of subjectivity, because it comes out of my mouth, so you hear it from me. It's not paper. Paper is, in my opinion, a very very objective medium, because it's not said by anyone. It doesn't come in a tone of voice, or it depends on how I interpret it, whether I want to interpret it in a more objective or subjective way. But because you don't see or hear a person behind it, I think it becomes a lot more difficult to identify that still a person wrote that paper, a person with a personal history, with their own biases, the same way that when we create the podcast or an episode, we have biases. It's not that we're free from that. And I think that this is also a way that, first of all, science becomes more approachable, but also I think it shows a bit more realism in science.
Yep, true. I'm just thinking of a really nice quote we also put in our article to the question, what can podcasts do that other media can't? Do you know what quote I mean?
Yes, do you want to read it?
Yeah, I can do this. Picardi and Regina wrote this concerning podcasts, and I think it really summarizes the issue about podcasts. They say internet and the new media, like the podcast, are completely overturning the communication scenario. Not only because they turn unidirectional information processes, typical in traditional media, into interactive dialogue forms. Social networks are also and above all creating different and new forms to be citizens and to take part in the public debate, also on science. And I think this is a really strong advantage or a new perspective on science, that people, no matter where they are, what jobs they have, what education they have, they can actually participate also in the science communication, also in the science
creation,
discussion and debate.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really nice and a new turn science communication took, because I have the feeling that especially it happens a lot that especially in spatial planning, because I think there is the communication between practitioners and scientists is a lot better, but still it happens a lot that scientists stay in their bubble, in their science bubble, and I think this changes a lot with podcasts, and could change a lot with the podcast.
I think on the other hand, that also poses a challenge. Like, for example, we saw it in our podcast, which we publish fairly regularly, and we actively ask people to participate and to comment, and we do get some comments, usually though they are private comments, so it's not really a public debate. We get emails, we get WhatsApp messages, we get Facebook messages, and there we engage in conversations, but I find it also quite difficult, and in our article, I think, I'm not sure if it made it into the article, but I remember reviewing a paper that was talking a bit about this issue that especially science podcasts struggle with interacting with their audience, because you want to make a smart comment, you want to not sound uninformed when you answer or comment on something, which makes podcasts, or I guess any type of social media or online media a bit more high threshold if you talk about science, because people don't want to seem like they don't know what they're talking about. I see it though, especially in some spatial planner Facebook groups and so on, that there is some debate on topics, and it's not always just consent on everything. But I also noticed that the people who participate usually are very established planners who already know very well where they stand. And I think that also comes with social media and the internet, that you feel like, okay, nothing is ever gone. So if I say something wrong now in regards to my field, and I noticed that feeling as well at the beginning of our podcast, that I was quite restrictive on what I was allowing myself to say, even though I knew it was based on scientific research, that I really thought, okay, should I say that? Should I say it in that way? And I still catch myself doing that sometimes, because especially as a younger planner who is new to the field in relation to someone who's been a practitioner or a researcher for 30 years, I feel like, okay, if I misstep now, then I might be out of the scientific community. Of course, that's a bit exaggerated, but I think that also makes science communication quite difficult, unless, and I'm putting that in here especially, it's provocative. Because if you put something that challenges social norms a lot, you usually get responses, whether it's based on science or it's not. And I see that Anna has responded to the previous question on the Grätzl-Gespräche. In general, what are your thoughts about speaking with the community, and how much influence have these on projects? You talked about Haussmann and how Napoleon III, and he decided on everything without the community. What is your preferred way, talking with the people or not? I think that's a great question in terms of what's the purpose of participation. Is participation good or bad? And and we have had a lot of discussions about that. So you asked the perfect question.
Yeah, actually, I've had so many discussions about participation processes in spatial planning in the previous 9 years since I started studying. 9 years, God. So we're actually not that new to the field, though, Sarah.
It does feel sometimes like that, though, especially when it comes to how the standard is set as well. But regardless.
Anyway,
don't age us.
And I was also part of the whole participation process about within a big project in my home community, and I felt that was actually really important to have this. I mean, now everything is turning out to be different anyway. This is how things happen normally, but still I have the feeling that all the acceptance of many people of this community, of this town, was a lot higher, since the people had the feeling they could participate and they could tell their opinion. So the acceptance is a lot higher, or it could be a lot higher, but still, from as a planner, being at those evening events and all those, they have various events concerning
participation
process, exactly. And I participated not as part of the team, as part of the planners team, but also not only as a
private citizen.
As a private citizen, but a private citizen with a planning background, which is this very special case, I would say.
Yeah.
And me personally, as just being myself, I got so annoyed of some discussions going on, because me as a planner, at that time pretty young planner, I was just like, oh no, what a stupid question! Oh, how dare them! Bah. But now I know better, and I think the reaction of the planners was actually pretty good, because they answered all the questions and really, really, really tried to meet the people also, like in a really, really respectful way, and really appreciated all the questions, even though me as a really young student was like, such a stupid question. But they're not stupid. If you're not a planner, some things are just difficult to understand, or it's just also some questions were just maybe too conservative in my personal world, in my personal bubble, because most of them, like the biggest discussion, were always about parking spaces, parking plots, parking garages, parking. And for me, as being a healthy young person, I was like, get rid of your car. But this is not the reality to people.
And now you can appreciate also that a little bit from a different perspective.
Currently, since I broke my leg, I'm not as healthy and mobile as I normally am. But anyway, the reality for people in this town is that one family has at least 2 cars, and
so it is a concern.
Whether it makes sense or not, this is the case, and this is the reality of those people. And of course, they are curious about parking spaces. And so to sum things up, I think that participation processes are very, very important. Also, that the people have the feeling that their city is planned with them, for them, but in the positive way, and not,
I think that's
someone else decides how is the way I should live.
I think with what you're saying on the Kretzelgespräche, I think the platforms that I know usually are more set up really as a discussion base, but not specifically intended for a planning process. And I think that makes it already very different from if you do a participation process like what Constanze just described. The participation process itself is an instrument towards a means to an end, because you want to reach that that goal of having a master plan, new zoning plan, whatever you want to create with or for the community. And I do think that it's very hard to actually create a planning process that doesn't just instrumentalize participation, because I think that's, for me, one of the things. I think there is parts that are important to include the community in, and I think sometimes in the past this didn't go far enough, and I think that citizens can be included in a lot more. However, I also see that, especially in highly technical, highly legal cases, where it comes down to certain standards that need to be met, that are set by governmental regulations, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't maybe challenge those regulations, but as a planner, then to get input to do something that is literally against the law is a bit also a waste of everyone's time, I think. So I think participation process...
Best example is building a new underground. I mean, of course, it makes sense to ask some things the citizens or just people living in close to areas where probably a new underground station will be. but this is such a technical topic, and you have so many restrictions concerning, I don't know, where is
Security.
actually security, and where, or also where's actually space down there, because I mean, this is not that it's just empty ground. There's a lot things going on
Underground.
underneath. Yeah. And so it's not that easy that someone could say, oh, but we could actually move the station somewhere else. Probably there's a bunch of reasons why they put it there.
In the first project that I did for university, so through our university degree, we do 3 different bigger projects. And in the first one that I did, we were planning an area in the south of Vienna where they planned to move the subway there, and we knew where it was going, and the first thing that we did was we moved the subway station a little bit further, which in hindsight is quite funny. They had their reasons though on why they put that station where they put it, and in regards to what Constanze said, that was about the Viennese subway stations that are currently being built to elongate certain metro lines. And I think one of the things,
the one that you're talking about at university
was the U one.
They are built.
Yeah, now they are built. But the one you're talking about is currently built, being built. So one of the things that for me becomes an issue is when it's just for show. I think this, and because you were saying that before, that now everything is different, for me that is not an ideal outcome out of a participation process, and also that's why I see it very different from an information process. So you can inform someone on what is going on, let them know early so they can adapt, maybe know a bit on how to react also to things, and maybe to adapt certain small things to their needs. But for me, a participation process only makes sense when in the end it looks like what the people actually put in is also something that is visible. And I think when it comes to science communication and the Grätzelgespräche, this is a very different perspective, because when you open up discussions like in Vienna currently we have the Platz für Wien Kampagne, which I also highly recommend that you follow. They have Instagram and Facebook and all the things, and I think you can still sign also their petition if you are based in Vienna, that to question certain things, to put out there, okay, we have a certain law that says I don't know, there should be this many cycling lanes, but then if you look at a map of all cycling lanes in Vienna, for example, you see they are cut in the middle, and they recently posted a very funny picture that was about how if we plan our subway like our bike lanes, that's what it would look like. And so I think to challenge these things, to challenge these assumptions, to create awareness also with green spaces, with notions of what is realistic to know. And for example, I did my thesis in Tanzania, and I followed a participation process there, which was very much based on educating people on how this whole thing actually works, and then with that information they were allowed to make decisions, which was more on the topic of informality becoming formal. So that's another big thing, but in terms of communication, to educate is one topic, and I don't think that as planners also we should always demonize the we're just giving you information part of participation. Technically, of course, that is not participation as in an exchange, but I also think if we demonize this, that this is not proper participation, we are limiting ourselves, because in certain moments maybe that's the best option, without just making it look like we have participation, and in the end you don't use any of the things that were actually asked by the participants. So yeah, I think science communication needs to focus on not necessarily participation processes, but very specifically on this communication, maybe challenging certain assumptions. And one of the reasons why we also chose, especially in Curriculum Extended, to focus on a lot of non-European topics, but in general that's our mission with Breaking Paradigms, is that even though we don't have that personal background of coming from the Global South, we want to showcase a variety of realities that you might otherwise not see. And so I think in communicating what is unseen, you already create a good basis for people to ask questions. So, for example, when we did the Walkable City episode, which was our last live stream, was about that. And I think some of the people who are here now were there then. Also, by the way, don't forget to... This side. Wait. No. I always point the wrong way. Don't forget to put the Zoll Plus in a bracket to get one of the magazines. We would really appreciate if some of you participated. It's nice that you're here, but we enjoy more giving you gifts. So basically just answer, how did you find Breaking Paradigms? How do you think Breaking Paradigms is? So you can answer in the more Germanized version of this question. Wie finden Sie Breaking Paradigms? Oder wie fanden Sie Breaking Paradigms? So how did you like it, or how did you actually find it? Both is fine. And just put Zoll Plus in brackets. We really appreciate if you participate, because we want to give away these beautiful magazines. Thank you for showcasing it. So yeah, and if you have any contributions in terms of science communication, like, thank you, Anna, for your comments. We really appreciate it, because it also gives us a little bit of talking material. So I think when we talk about participation in practical planning, science needs to do the same thing with communication, so that it can actually reach people. What is the status quo is maybe not satisfactory, and whether that means to look beyond your own horizons, or it means to just listen to other people than you normally listen to, that can create a lot of space. And as to the last question about Haussmann and Napoleon III, I think that's why I wouldn't say that was necessarily bad or evil or good and well done. I think the question is always, what is your final goal? And if, as a politician, because spatial planning is very political, do we choose to create a huge parking lot, or do we choose to create a huge park there? That's a political decision. There's no technical way to say one is better than the other. One might be environmentally more sustainable, one might be socially more sustainable. There's factors, but there's no objective way to say this is better or worse. It's just a different use, and I might have the personal opinion that I prefer a park in front of my house than a parking lot. I think most people would agree with that. But if you're someone who regularly needs their car, maybe you would like to have a parking lot in front of your house and not a park. So in terms of that,
or if you really need the car because you're not able to walk,
for example. Yeah, and these are all factors that don't mean that one decision is inherently better than the other. It also depends on the people's needs that are there. And so in terms of science communication, when we talk, for example, about what we covered this year was gender planning, for example, to really create awareness on what does the science say, what are the different needs that are very gendered sometimes. And if you listen to the episode we did on urban versus rural, we interviewed Eva Keil, who is really a pioneer of the topic. We interviewed Doris Damjanovic, who is actually also has an article in the Zoll Plus magazine, in that one, but you can win there. And it's also and it also includes Petra Hirschler, who has a strong background in rural planning, and they discuss from different perspectives what science tells us, how the deficits are, but also from a practical perspective what the deficits are. And there you can see very well how science and practical planning work go together. But all that still means that when we educate planners, we need to educate them in these topics. And if we don't do that while they are in school, maybe gender planning wasn't a topic 30 years ago when our curriculum started, 40 years, I think by now, that...
When our study started.
Yeah. When
50 years now. No?
In Vienna, I mean.
In Vienna, yeah.
And those topics weren't present at the time, but that doesn't mean that science communication should stop and not try to reach out. And you have magazines, scientific literature, like Zoll Plus, who tackle these topics regularly, or our podcast, really trying to also incentivize people to change their attitudes towards a topic if there is new science about it, or maybe to say, hey, what you're actually doing is also based in science, because very often as a practitioner maybe you try out something but you didn't know how it would work in reality. So yeah, I think because we were talking before as well about what podcasts can do that other media can't, we have a long list about that in our article. And I think in terms of podcasts being able to be listened to while you're cooking or while you're doing something else, that's a huge advantage. You don't have any visual information, so you're not missing out on that. Also has its downfalls, of course, but in general, I personally really enjoy creating also the medium of podcasts, because it has the potential to reach a lot of people, but from my own perspective, it's a lot less work than creating a video. Of course, it's a different story if it's a live stream like here. I don't need to create any additional information rather than what I'm saying by creating a video to it. But if it's a cut episode, like when we do interviews, usually they're 45 minutes to an hour long. If you're a patron of ours, you can actually listen to the full episodes, full interviews, sorry, that you cut all of that together, and then you have visual information to all of that, which I know some people actually asked for, if we could do some motion graphics with it, like not even just a video, but really an animated video in the end, or with some visual materials to help them better understand. And I think that can help, but our concept was originally intended, it's actually really intended as just something you listen to, which I know can also create a higher threshold, like what we said before. If you don't speak the language, so to speak, that can be quite difficult. Speak the language actually could also mean, just because we usually do it in English.
Yeah.
So
you talked about the patrons we have. Thank you, by the way, to our patrons. Maybe we should reveal our surprise we already mentioned in the very beginning.
There's another comment by Anna. How often we forget about things because they are outside of our bubble. So spread the, I guess you want to write, awesomeness, and new point of views is why I come regularly back. Zoll Plus. Woo, we have our first participant. We have 5 magazines, so if you write a comment and there's only 5 magazines, it's yours. There's only 5 comments, it's yours. So yeah, surprise. What's the surprise? Constanze, please reveal.
Okay, So we've been working on the podcast for a year now, and we've been thinking of what kind of thing breaking paradigms actually is and should be. And actually, this is a way. I mean, it is a podcast, though, but but the decision, what type of thing it actually is, was a way bigger decision than we thought before, because we couldn't actually decide if we should be a company or an association or a club or just us two doing things. And after 1 year of just being us two doing things, we finally decided to find an association. And so this is what we did. So since, what is it, the 1st of July,
June.
We are official. The 1st of June already, right? The 1st of June already.
It's been a long time.
We are officially an association based in Vienna. And normally, in the German term, we are a Verein. So we are no company, but...
and most importantly, we are a non-profit.
Exactly. So we're a non-profit. That's why it's also important for not being a company. So we decided to be a non-profit association. And normally, associations do have members. So currently, we are basically 2.
But everyone who supports us on Patreon, we will contact you directly if you, for free, in addition to supporting us on Patreon, want to be a supporting member of the association. And if you want to join as a member, you can do so. We said if you donate to us at least €1 per year, you can be a supporting member. If you donate €10 per year or more, which is the minimum if you are a patron, because it's €1 per month. What, yeah. Dollar? We're not counting cents here. Then you are a supporting member officially. So if you support us on Patreon, even with just $1 per month, you're officially invited to be a member. You have also the perks, obviously, of just getting notified early. Some people really like getting email notifications for new episodes, and we sometimes post also some things that happen in between the episodes or why episodes are late. Also the Patreon community rules. Thank you, Didak, for that comment. So one of the things that actually we want to offer, though, is that people who don't want to use Patreon or don't want to support regularly but just want to do a one-time donation, you can also do that. We have a PayPal account. You can find it very easily on our website, and you can just donate whatever amount and just put in there that you want to be a member. And if you donate more than €10, we will also create an email list so you get the same notifications as everyone who is a patron, because that puts you on equal terms financially. And we said then we want to, everyone who contributes the same should also receive the same rewards. And so we will create an email list where you get the same update as everyone on Patreon. You get early access to the episodes, you get all the bonus content, and as a extra bonus, we will send all the previous bonus content that we created. So, like, if you become a member now, you get all the things that we did in the past year, because right now we're going on a bit of a summer break, to get ready for our next season, and we will be back with new episodes in October. So we'll take 2 months of summer break, technically speaking. Actually, we will work on episodes, and then we will also adjust our schedule a little bit, because both of us are now in a different situation job-wise, or one of us is in a different situation job-wise. With this one. Why do I always point in the wrong direction? We said we will reduce to once a month, and we will do therefore an episode in October, in November, and in December, and then we will go again through to June to create an episode each month. We want also kind of to focus a bit more on experimenting a little bit with you guys. We will do a coffee mug experiment. If you're interested in...
Don't spoil it! Don't spoil it!
I think coffee mug experiment could be anything from how to pour the correct amount of milk and coffee together to what we are actually doing. We're not pouring coffee and milk together. That's a spoiler.
I mean, we'll... Anyway, but
if you want to participate, let us know through any of the social medias. You find all the links in the description below as well.
Yeah. And speaking about supporting, many of you might be students and don't even want to have €1 per month
to spend
on any podcast. We totally understand that. That's totally fine.
We've been there.
We've been there, and we know that when someone some fundraisers on the street say, "But it's just €1. That's not a lot." It's still it is money, and it sums up. And if you don't want to spend that money, that's totally okay. But what we really, really, really appreciate, at least. As much as we appreciate money, is attention on social media. So if you don't want to spend any money but you really want to support us, which we really appreciate, we would be really happy if you just keep sharing, liking, commenting on our content. Whether on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube, then you get always a notification when we post something new. Especially on time, because all the algorithms in Facebook are sometimes weird, so sometimes things are like 3 days at least late. So
sharing is free. Didak just commented, and Susanne commented, "Wish you two a good summertime, and I'm keen what will be your next theme starting in October. Bye for today." We can already spoil the title of the 3 episodes, I think. So the topic of the first 3 episodes we will do in autumn will be Eat the City. So we'll showcase...
So the 3 are it's a mini season. It's not a season, but it's like a mini project. It's Eat the City with it's a series, I would say. Anyway, the first is the coffee mug experiment. You will figure out what this is going to be. The second one is concerning markets and its role in the urban fabric.
That's the third.
That's the third out there.
The second one is on street food.
True, and the second one is on street food. So we literally eat the city. Yeah, so those are the 3 topics, and I'm really excited about it.
Me too. So yeah, that's going to be our topics. If you want to spoilers, spoilers. We want to get you excited about it, and so yeah, we really appreciate your support, whether it's financial or it's sharing and commenting and doing all that good stuff. If you haven't written a comment yet, now is the moment to write a comment. If you're still watching, you still get a chance to write a comment until Friday. So if you want to think of something very smart to write, it's also okay to do that. we just really want to be able to at least give away these 5. And so yeah, we really appreciate any shares. Susanne commented, sounds great. And something we really also want to, and this goes back to science communication, is that your topic, yes, I assumed it was about that topic, thank you, that we really want to also create more low threshold experiences, so that when you listen to the podcast, similarly to the Walkable City episode, also something we tried to do very much in the Curriculum Extended series was to create something interactive, something that you can actually reproduce at home, and therefore also participate in science yourself, and also kind of experience what spatial planning actually means, whether you're in Europe or anywhere else in the world. And so yeah, we want to create a space where science communication is not just unidirectional. We tell you the things that are like coming out, but we really want to have also that response, and we want to have that feedback on, hey, that was really crazy that my score on the Walkable City was so low. That doesn't seem right. Can you check again? And for me, that's one of the most important parts of science communication, to make it interesting for people, but still to be accurate and still to be very much on topic in terms of what is necessary also to communicate. And what is necessary can be different for each planner. We choose to share a global perspective because that's something that's near and dear to our hearts, but we really recommend following also different platforms on spatial planning, because that gives you a wider range of information.
Very true.
Very true.
I think we'll come to an end, right?
Yes, I think so too. I think we shared everything. We shared our opinions on scientific communication. We shared that we now are a non-profit association, which we're very excited about, that we finally have some sort of legal status. We will update now also our website a little bit. And also good news, our web player is working again. So if you enjoyed watching the episodes directly on our website, that is currently working again. We might do some construction on all of that through our little break. And we're super excited that you stuck with us for one whole year, 22 episodes. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you back again in October. Thank you very much for following us once more, and you still have some parting words, Constanze?
Enjoy the rest of the summer. A little go swimming for me, since I have a cast, so I'm not allowed to swim. So enjoy the summer.
Or the winter if you're from the south.
Or the winter, right? I'm sorry. Or the rest of the winter. I'm really looking forward to October, and I'm really looking forward to our coming episodes we're going to produce in the following weeks, and see you in October.
Bye. And if you want to participate, still answer this, and if you want to participate in thank you, Dila, great streaming. If you want to participate in any of our experiments, write us at info@breakingparadigms.org.
Yeah, we will keep you updated on our social media concerning the experiments. And if you want to win that, put Toll Plus in the comments to your comment. So there's still